When you watch something like the Golden Globes, you're watching a beautiful moment of celebration. A name is called. Someone walks up those steps. A heavy gold trophy changes hands. In that split second, everything looks so clear. It looks like arrival. It's a moment we all instinctively root for, because we love to see hard work finally pay off. But what those cameras often miss, not because they're trying to hide it, but because it's simply too big to capture, is the incredible, messy, and quiet journey that led to that stage. We see the final frame, and it's stunning, but there are thousands of frames before it that tell the real story. By the way, welcome back to the Daily Better podcast. It's so good to have you here. I wanted to talk about this today because I think many of us spend a lot of time comparing our in-progress lives to everyone else's finished moments. And if you've ever felt a little behind while watching someone else win, I want you to know why that feeling is actually based on a misunderstanding of how growth works. At the 83rd Golden Globe Awards in 2026, when films like Hamnet or One Battle After Another took the spotlight, we saw actors standing there with a sense of calm and confidence. To the world, they looked like they were born for that moment. But no performance begins where the applause starts. One of the winners that night shared a small detail about having to learn a completely new skill for their role. We're talking about months of repetition, of being a beginner again, making mistakes in private, and pushing through frustration far away from any camera. That detail was just a small part of their speech. But it's actually the most human part of the story. Because before something looks impressive, it almost always looks a little awkward. Before it looks confident, it feels uncertain. And long before it's called talent, it's just called not giving up. The thing about awards is that they naturally compress time. They take years of slow, steady work and fold them into a 30-second highlight reel. This is a beautiful way to celebrate, but it can accidentally distort how we see our own progress. When we see the trophy, we don't always see the 10 years of not quite there yet that preceded it. Think about the story of EJ. If you saw her shining on stage in 2026, you might see a finished product of pure talent. But EJ's story didn't start with a trophy. It started with a decade of silence. For 10 long years, she poured her soul into the dream of becoming an idol in the grueling South Korean music industry. Think about that for a second. 10 years. That's an entire decade of waking up, practicing until your body aches, and facing a constant stream of no. She wasn't just facing one rejection. She was facing a decade of them. Every audition that didn't go through, every debut that got canceled, every time someone told her she wasn't quite what they were looking for. To the outside world, it might have looked like she was failing. It might have even looked like she was wasting her time. But when she finally stood in the light, she shared a message that I think every single one of us needs to hear. She didn't talk about how lucky she was. She talked about perspective. She said, rejection is not the end of the road. It's just a redirection. That is a profound shift in thinking. When we are in the middle of our own struggle, a rejection feels like a wall. It feels like a sign that says, stop. But for EJ, those 10 years of walls were actually just guardrails, nudging her, shaping her, and redirecting her toward the version of herself that was meant to stand on that stage. She wasn't just waiting for her turn. She was becoming the person who could handle the moment when it finally arrived. When you compare your middle to someone else's end, your progress can feel smaller than it really is. But please remember, you aren't falling behind. You're just in a different chapter, like EJ. You might be in the chapter where you're being redirected. And that redirection is often where the most important growth happens. Most of the people on that stage in 2026 spent years working without a guarantee. That's a very brave thing to do, to keep showing up for your craft, your business, or your family, when there's no evidence yet that it will lead to a trophy. They worked when the room was empty. They practiced when no one was watching. They believed in the value of their work long before the world gave them a reason to. Awards celebrate the outcome, which is wonderful, but they can't always capture the quiet discipline of the process. They don't show the resilience it takes to get back up after a setback, or the courage it takes to keep your heart open after a disappointment. Timing in life is also a very personal thing. Some winners that year had been dedicated to their craft for decades. Others were seeing their first big spark of recognition. Both paths are valid, and both require the same thing, the willingness to stay in the game. That's why these moments can feel a bit overwhelming. You aren't watching a life in real time, you're watching a celebration of a result. And results always make the journey look smoother than it actually was. But growth real, lasting growth happens in the stretches that don't feel award-worthy at all. It happens on a Tuesday morning when you're tired, but you still show up. It happens when you're learning, failing, and trying again. The people we celebrate didn't skip those moments. They grew through them. And that matters, because that's likely where you are right now. You're in the silent growth phase. In nature, a seed spends a lot of time under the dirt before anyone sees a leaf. To an observer, it looks like nothing is happening. But underneath, that seed is building a root system that will eventually support a whole tree. If the tree grew leaves before it grew roots, it wouldn't survive the first storm. Right now, you are building your roots. The challenges you're facing, the no's you're getting, aren't signs that you're failing. Like EJ said, they are redirections. They are signs that you're becoming the kind of person who can actually handle the success you're working toward. If the applause came too early, we might stop growing. The quiet years are actually the foundation years. We live in a world that loves the overnight success story. But almost every overnight success was years in the making. You can't rush the person you are becoming. Life is lived in the process. If we only wait for the trophy to feel successful, we miss the beauty of the journey itself. The real victory isn't the gold statue. It's the fact that you've developed the skill, the character, and the heart to do what you do. Think about the power of the not yet. There is so much magic in that space. It's where you're still curious, still hungry, and still discovering what you're capable of. So the next time you see someone else's win, let it inspire you. Let it be proof that great things are possible, but don't let it make you feel small. You're seeing their ending, but you're still writing your middle. The work you're doing right now, the quiet, unpolished, everyday work counts. It counts more than you know. It's building your resilience. It's sharpening your skills. It's shaping your story. The world might not be clapping yet. But that doesn't mean you aren't moving forward. The work you do in the quiet is what prepares you for the light. Don't rush it. Don't be discouraged by the middle, because one day, when you reach your own version of that stage, whatever that looks like for you, people will look at you and say, you made it look easy. They'll talk about your natural talent, and you'll just smile, because you'll know the truth. You'll know that the most important parts of your journey were the ones they didn't see. The moments you spent building your roots in the dark. You'll know that every no was just a not this way, leading you exactly where you needed to be. Keep going. The process is where the real life happens. The applause is just a nice echo of the work you've already done, and your work is happening right now, especially now. Thanks for joining me today on the Daily Better. If you know someone who's working hard and feeling a bit invisible, or someone who just faced a rejection that felt like the end of the world, maybe send this their way. Remind them that rejection isn't a wall, it's just a new direction. I'll talk to you in the next episode. Keep building those roots.